We are back. We are so back with by-election roundup videos, the first of 2026. Only a very short one this week because there's only 2 to get through, so it will be a shorter by-election roundup video. But so happy to be back doing these videos. I know these are your favourite videos that we do on the channel as well, and I think that these elections, these by-elections, over a period of time, as we go through them every week, gives us a much better insight into the political temperature than just opinion polling by itself. So, yeah, really happy to be back doing this. And like I say, we've got 2. And I tell you what, a lot of talk recently about maybe the Conservatives, making a comeback, closing the gap in the opinion polls with reform. Maybe, is there a hope for them? Well, I'll tell you what. Call me Victor Meldrew because I don't believe it. And we'll get on to why not in this first result here. Bridge Mary Ward in Gosport. Reform gain off the Liberal Democrats. Now, look, very, very interesting to see that happen. We mentioned increasingly in videos recently about eventually there's going to be this head-to-head between Reform and the Liberal Democrats if the Conservatives keep falling off, because naturally they're going to start butting up against each other. And Gosport is one such place. Yeah, look, Liberal Democrats here, they got 40% of the votes, down 8 points. You might see, by the way, the graphic is different. Now, these are not my graphics. These are from electionmaps.uk. I always point you in their direction because it's a very, very good website. I don't know if Election Maps watches the videos. I think they probably don't. But I know a lot of you have been saying that the graphics were harder to read, and I was thinking about making my own. But hopefully with these updates, things are a bit easier for you to make out there. So there you go. Yeah, Liberal Democrats got 40% of the vote here in Gosport, Bridge Mary Ward this time round. They're down 8 points on the 48% they got to win the ward last time in 2024. Reform comes straight in with 42.5% of the vote, call it 43. So very, very close. You can see only 29 votes in it and a 2% winning margin for Reform. So very, very close. But I suppose that's what you'd expect in a battle against the Liberal Democrats. This is not necessarily the same sort of easier wins, or they become easy now, for the Reform get over Labour and Conservatives in different parts of the country. So where they come up against the Liberal Democrats, it will probably be closer. It's going to be a much harder fought victory in those places, but they are proving, this isn't the first time, that they can beat the Liberal Democrats as well. So turnout was 32% as well, which is decent. We've seen that average creep up to about 30% for these by-elections. Look, if you're new to the channel, of course, 32% turnout is very poor, but these local by-elections, it's not been uncommon in the past to see turnouts as low as the low 20s, even into the teens, and that does still happen. But we are seeing turnout starting to improve, which is good. It's a good thing for democracy. So we'll take the win, even though it is still poor. So the Conservatives then, well, why do I not believe in this? And I said, in some of the videos I've done over the Christmas New Year period and just before, when this sort of story or these the people were starting to say that the Conservatives were making a comeback. They were, closing in on the polls, and there's a chink of light. Kemi's coming good all of a sudden. I said, well, let's just wait and see what happens in the by-elections, because that's where we'll find out. And look, Gosport, in fact, I'll go through this first. So the Tories got 15%, down 24 points. Okay, that's a terrible result for them. It's not in any way the sort of result that would suggest they are anywhere close to being back. Look, I've said, haven't I, that I'm expecting in May for Labour to have an average 20-point decline across the wards that they're defending. The Conservatives are doing minus 24 here. Maybe I'm being a bit too conservative. Maybe Labour are going to go down more. But look, this is a very, very bad result, and it's not in isolation. We saw that Hastings, it wasn't Hastings, it was East Sussex, sorry, but the ward was just on the outskirts of Hastings, where they lost almost 40 points in that one. So this isn't novel. Down to 14% of the votes, and Labour obviously stood. They lost another 10% down to 2.5%. Very, very irrelevant there, really. So, considering the Tories were pretty close, 10% behind the Liberal Democrats before, this is bad. And why is it even worse? Well, if we hop over to Open Council data quickly, and if we just wind the clock back to after the 2021 election, I don't think there was an election in 2021 because the county councils were, but in 2021, the Conservatives had a majority in Gosport. A very slender majority, not too much in it, and the Lib Dems were doing well then as well, clearly the second party on the council. But this is only 5 years ago, and the Conservatives had a majority here. And now we're seeing them losing 24 points and coming a very distant third place to Reform and the Liberal Democrats. So, no, I don't believe it that the Conservatives are back. I need a lot more convincing before I start believing that. But a good win for Reform, beating the Liberal Democrats, very, very interesting. Like I say, we've mentioned it a few times. And, of course, Gosport Council is up for election in May. Look, the Liberal Democrats now as well have lost their majority, by the way, down to 14 councillors. That means they're bang on 50%, so they've lost an overall majority. So it's a meaningful result too. And so Gosport will definitely be one to watch on election night if you join us for our live stream. The inaugural live stream of this channel is going to be on election night 2024, 7th of May, 10 o'clock. Be there. It's going to be good fun, I hope. Right, we'll move on to Heworth Ward in York. This is the last one for this week, of course. It's a Labour hold. No, we don't say that very often, do we, these days? Labour defending, last up in 2023. And, Labour, they got 37% of the votes, so a relatively low vote share to win on. But these days, actually, not that low. We've seen much lower. They lost 27% of their 27 points off their vote, though. So, again, like I said, expect to see these drops of 20. I'm starting to wonder if maybe I've been a bit too conservative saying expect an average of 20 points. I think it might be more than that, on average even. But look, 27.5 points down here. Clearly, their large majority going into this one has sort of insulated them from losing the seats. Reform were still 16, 17 points behind, but they did come in second place, pretty much tied up with the Greens, actually, who they both got around about 20%, sorry. The Greens increased by 4 points. Obviously, Reform coming in for the first time straight into second place. In York, not a bad result, I'd say. Look, I'm kind of going off the hip here, but York, I would not consider to be necessarily a Reform-friendly territory. I would have thought that they would come third behind either the Greens or the Liberal Democrats. And in all fairness, it was very, very close with the Greens. So I suppose, perhaps you can just kind of splitting hairs, really. But so look, just interesting again. Reform do come second to Labour in York. Labour hold on, and obviously they'll take that to the bank. They'll be very happy with that. But again, such a large drop in the vote share, and look, May is going to be so devastating for Labour. So many wards where they're going to see these, and like I've said during these preview videos, just don't be surprised in certain parts of the country where they have big vote share majorities going into the election this year. Don't be surprised to see them drop 40 points, maybe even more. Like I say, I've been saying an average 20-point drop. Let's keep an eye on it over the coming weeks, see how much they drop in the wards they're defending, and that'll inform us as to what we're looking at in May. But yeah, it's going to be an awful night for Labour in May, and it's going to be very interesting to see if Starmer can survive it. Will he even survive to May? Obviously, at the moment, the light's kind of on the Conservatives with the Robert Jenrick defection. So, anyway, here there was a majority, like I say, of 495, 17-point majority almost. It was a comfortable win still, despite Labour dropping all that vote share. And really, when you look at the bars, it's because the vote share split so equally. I mean, the Liberal Dems, Reform and the Greens pretty much got the same amount of votes. So that saved Labour there, really, the splitting of the vote. So... and the turnout here was almost 32% as well. So again, a decent turnout in York. And that is it. That's our 2 by-elections for this week. We will now, as we always do, go and have a quick look at what we've got to look forward to next week. So I'm very happy to say next week we're back up to a much more healthy 7 by-elections to get our teeth into. So looking forward to that. Make sure you hit subscribe and the notification bell if you haven't already, so that you don't miss the video next week as we go through these results. And we've got a few interesting ones to look at. So Amber Valley, Codner, Langley Mill and Aldercard Ward. Now look, this is very much Reform heartland territory these days. Obviously Amber Valley in Derbyshire, I believe, someone might correct me, it's Derbyshire or Nottinghamshire. I'm pretty sure it's Derbyshire. And look, I mean, in 2023, when this was last up, Reform got over a fifth of the vote. In 2023, I mean, that's quite remarkable. So this could be a big win for Reform, potentially, up there in Amber Valley. Derbyshire, again, for the county council this time. Horsley, this is a Reform defence. So they did defend one successfully in Derbyshire just before the end of the year last year. Reform did. Obviously, it's had been a bit sketchy with Reform defences. Obviously, defending the seats that they won in 2025's local elections has been another one that's that's gone, councillors resigned for some reason here. They got 35% of the vote in 2025. So a low share of the vote to win with. Second place was actually the Greens on almost 27% of the vote. I'm tempted to say Reform will win, but I expect their vote share will decline. And it depends by how much, because declining from 35% is going to put you in some sort of jeopardy of losing the seat because you're already on a low vote share anyway. I'm saying that because the trend generally has been that when they have held onto their seats, it's been on a declining vote share. There's been one, I think, where they increased marginally. But I expect a reduction of maybe 5%, something like that, which brings them down to would be just under 30%. Which would put them very much, if they win on 29.9% of the vote, obviously it's a very low vote share to win with, but not the lowest we've seen. But I do have a feeling Reform might hold on, but let's keep an eye on the Greens, who did very well here last year. And look, again, the Conservatives on 22.8% of the vote. I don't know, I haven't looked it up, apologise. This, I assume, is probably a seat that the Reform won off of the Conservative Party last year. So maybe they can show me up next week and improve their vote share significantly enough to beat Reform. So that's going to be an interesting one to watch. Williston and Thornton, Cheshire West and Chester Council, Conservatives defending. They've got a big 61% share of the vote coming into this. Yeah, look, this is, again, one of those northern areas that is pretty much a Tory heartland. Let's keep an eye on it. Let's see how well the Greens do here. Would be what I'd say. I'm not sure. Reform as well, of course. Everywhere we keep an eye on Reform because they do tend to sort of show up everywhere. But let's see what happens to that Green vote. They didn't get too much last time, 8% of the vote in 2023. Labour, 26.5. I expect to see that decline quite heavily. Let's see how much of that goes to the Greens and see what the Tories do here. Can they hold up on that 60% of the vote or will it drop away? The Rissingtons ward for Cotswolds Council, Greens defending. Last time it was just a straight shootout between them and the Conservative Party, and they won with just under 60% of the vote. 4 people standing this time, so double the amount of candidates on the ballot paper. What I'd say with this one is I reckon the Greens will probably win, but keep an eye on the Liberal Democrats. Cotswolds is very much Liberal Democrat friendly territory, but I imagine the Greens will probably hold on to that one. Glenrothes West and King Lassie in Fife. SNP defending. Of course, they've got the different electoral system up there. Single transferable vote goes through a number of rounds. But you can see the SNP did win on the first preference last time. I imagine that will be the same again. Let's keep an eye on Reform. Reform in Scotland is very, very interesting. They won't come close to winning the seat, I don't think. If you think differently, because like I say, my knowledge of Scotland is ropey. So if you think differently, do let me know in the comments. But I don't think Reform will come close to winning here. But let's see what happens compared to Labour. That's going to be the narrative going into the elections in May this year, is can Reform beat Labour into second place? Obviously, they're not going to do it everywhere, but let's just see what this result says next week. Leedswood, Flintshire Council up in the north of Wales. Now, this could be a big one for Labour. 60% of the vote last time. Only 3 people on the ballot paper last time as well, whereas this time there's, 3, 6, 8 people on the ballot paper next week. So there's a lot of different areas for those votes to go. This could be one of those where we see a massive drop in Labour's vote share. That northern part of Wales has gone sort of towards Reform, so perhaps an opportunity for Reform there. But look, we've got Labour standing again, obviously. We've got a Liberal Democrat. I wouldn't expect too much from them there. 3 independents, which always muddies the waters a little bit in terms of predicting these things, because you can see last time out one of the independents got 25% of the vote, which is not insignificant. There's a localist standing, and then the Tories and Reform as well. So look, I think this could be one of those where there's a big drop in Labour support. And lastly for next week, we've got Central Wymondham. Sorry if it's wrong. I always get told of pronunciation. I'm going to go Central Wymondham. South Norfolk Conservatives are defending, but they won with 35.6% of the vote in 2023. So again, a low vote share to win on. They were run quite close, but kind of Labour and the Greens got in each other's way, really. Labour got 29.2, the Greens got 29.6. Again, let's see where that Labour vote goes. This could be another one to watch for the Green Party. If a lot of that Labour vote goes to the Greens, then they're certainly going to challenge the Tories. But again, look, in 2023, you can see even then the little Reform tab in the end just sneaking into view. So in 2023, if Reform are putting up 5%, look, that seems insignificant, I know. But bear in mind, in 2023, reform was a much different proposition than it is in 2026. So they could come in and win the seat if they take enough of the Conservative vote and Labour and the Greens get in the way of each other again. But like I said, expecting big drops for Labour. I mean, if we took the 20% off, 20 points off of them here, they'd be down to 9. If a significant amount of that goes to the Greens will win, won't they? So, yeah, be very interesting. So there you go, 7 to look forward to next week. Like I say, make sure you are subscribed with the notification bell hit so that you don't miss those. And to reiterate what I said at the beginning, because we're in the new year, if you're new to the video, new to the channel, thanks for watching. And I think this is the best way, watching these videos each week over a period of time, we get a much better understanding of where the political winds are blowing, what the political temperature is, more than just looking at polling, even the averages of opinion polls. I think this is far more informative because it's real elections. So, yes, please do join me next week. Thank you, guys. Like I said, it's so good to be back doing these videos again. And thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next week.